guys, and welcome to another episode of Breaking Barriers, the Mental Health Podcast. I'm Camila.
And I'm Lizzie.
And on today's episode, we're going to be talking about something that is very necessary for all of us, and it is motivation.
Motivation and empowerment. So all of you that are listening, we know that this is going to help you right now. If you're listening us through the Apple Podcast or through Spotify or watching us through YouTube, this is an episode you do not want to miss. We have an amazing guest here today, Dr. Adrian Mesa. This guy is so multifaceted. He's so multidimensional. I have so many adjectives to describe him. Honestly, he has worked in a pediatric intensive care unit. He's an Army veteran. He was a professor at the University of Miami. Now he has his own mental health clinic. He has seen people, the entire range of human emotions. And I'm so excited that we have him here today. I'm going to stop rambling. Thank you for joining us on this show.
It's an honor and a pleasure to be here, honestly, I promise.
So before we begin, also, I would like to mention that Dr. Adrian Mesa, he's a dual certified nurse practitioner. He's a family nurse practitioner and a psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner. And he opened up his own practice. We want to know what brought you into opening this.
Yeah, because you've been through so many different
career
paths.
That's basically my why, honestly. I started, I dove into mental health simply because I have an uncle who suffers from mental health issues. I've known what a Baker Act was since the age of 6. I saw him struggle with schizophrenia. I didn't know what it was back then. To me, he was just my uncle who I loved. I'll paint a picture for you. My dad was the hard worker. My dad's an entrepreneur. He has a tire shop. Shout out to 103rd Street Tire Center. So I saw that aspect of what a man is through him. But I never had those interactions with my dad where we were playing ball in the yard or he was coming to my baseball games or anything like that. My uncle, however, represented that aspect of a father figure to me, where he taught me about sports, about exercise, photography, and so many of the things that I'm passionate about came from him. In the same breath, like I remember, I have a vivid memory of my uncle when I was like maybe 13, 14, him cornering me and asking me, "Are you smoking crack, boy?" And this is somebody who I loved and cared about. And it was confusing, right? And throughout my childhood, it was confusing until I realized it was, él está enfermo.
Yeah. Did anybody ever have a conversation with you and tell you what was going on, or you had to learn it on your own?
I think my mom did her best to describe what was going on, but then it always would go back to he's sick. So that was just kind of the blanket statement that we would use. And then as I got older, obviously I became more interested in it. And that's really what definitely was the seed of the passion that I had for mental health.
Force.
Yeah, because I saw not only how it impacted him, his kids, his wife, his work, my grandmother, my mom, me, everybody. So it was like just impacting everybody around him. It was a ripple effect that the whole family was affected. So that's where that comes from.
Very well.
For sure.
But despite his mental health challenges, he was a driving force for you, right? As a kid, like you said, that's where your love for photography and all those things came from. You got it from him.
Yeah. And so it helped me a lot, especially when I worked in the psych ward where this is how I got my first job. I transferred from pediatric ICU, where I was working with children in Jackson and Children's Hospital of Los Angeles. And then I told the director, Denise O'Connell at Amateur Hospital back then. And I said to her, I want to work in psych. She's like, you have no psych experience. And I just told her my story. And so she hired me on the spot.
Wow.
Showed up with jeans. Not a good idea, guys. Don't show up.
Oh my God.
I was 20-something years old. But it definitely, so it changed my interactions with patients because the nurses would bring out lunch for the patients. And I would go sit with the patients and have lunch with them and just conversate.
You were treating them as human beings rather than a patient.
More people.
Yeah.
I feel like I was just hanging out with people. And it's no different how I would treat my uncle. And I saw past the illness. I knew they were going back home to a family, to a job. This was a temporary stay.
Yeah.
So
it's kind of like you have a little bit of a more connection when you live through it, or someone that you care about that has a mental health condition versus someone that they don't know or basically they don't care as much, and they just gonna see a patient. It's just gonna see a number. They don't really have that drive to actually care properly for them.
Absolutely. And I want to stress the fact that only 1% of the population that I serve at A&P Mental Health actually ends up in the hospital. So the majority of people who are coming to us with mental health issues are doctors, nurses, accountants, everyday laborers that are just out in our community.
Yes.
Mothers, fathers, uncles that are struggling. And it's okay to struggle.
That's right. That's part of the message.
They're not crazy. They're not going to end up in the psych ward, but they need help. They're having relationship issues, financial issues, just different issues that we run into as human beings.
So Dr. Mesa, we love how on your social media, you're very authentic, you're very genuine. And I think that is so relatable because people can go on there and they see that you're a real guy talking about real issues. You've shared with us your own personal hardships. You were laid off from the University of Miami. You're divorced and, just certain things that people struggle with, And I want to ask you, how do you continue to be so motivated despite those challenges?
Yeah.
I think it's just part of the human condition that we're going to go through trials and tribulations. Today, I said that the message for today was don't make speed bumps into roadblocks, right? And a lot of times,
I'm gonna write that down.
Go for it. That's a verse from LaRusso. He's a rapper out of the West Coast that I follow. But I really do believe that we're going to constantly run into speed bumps, and then sometimes we view that as just the end when it's not. That's actually the beginning of something else. And so whether it was, had I never been laid off from the University of Miami, I probably wouldn't have gone all into my company, into A&P Mental Health. So I really view it as a blessing. I had a great time at the University of Miami. COVID hit. I think everybody was kind of at a loss for what's going to happen next. They laid off about 14 of us that morning. If you get a Zoom call and the lady from HR is present with your immediate boss and the dean of the school, it's probably not a good sign. And so it's very memorable to me, exactly what they said. They said, as of June 1st, 2020, your contract with the University of Miami is being terminated. And I leaned into the screen and I said, today is June 1st. Today is June 1st. And I was preparing to lecture that evening. And so by the next day, I had already decided that day, I'm not going to lie, my ego was shot. I wasn't honestly that happy being a professor at UM. I think it was prestigious. I think it felt good to say I am a professor at the University of Miami. I'm a kid from Hialeah. I would have never expected that. So I think that 6-year journey while I was there was a tremendous blessing, and I'm extremely grateful for the University of Miami. And I'm also happy they let me go.
Yeah, but taking that as a man, as a father, someone else could have taken that into a completely different direction. What do you think was the fuel that motivated you to do better for yourself?
I'm not a victim. I don't think any of us are victims. I don't believe in that mentality where I just decide that, oh, poor me. I say, okay, what's the next challenge? How do I move forward from here? What am I passionate about? What do I love? How do I move forward? What have I been promising myself that I've brushed under the rug for so long? And one of those things was having my own business. I've seen my dad run a successful tire company for 35 years. And my dad is not organized. My dad is an amazing human. He's always believed just in serving the community around him. And so I took a lot of those attributes from him and just said, I can do it too.
I want to talk about something that you just brought up.
Sure.
Because maybe there's somebody listening to us right now or watching us on YouTube and they're going through a hard time. They're facing several challenges and they have that victim mentality. What would you say to them?
To get help, to speak to somebody who's objective, unbiased, not directly in your family, somebody that you can disclose everything that's going through your head, somebody you could be extremely real and transparent with. And that way, that's the first step. And if you can admit to yourself that you're accountable for a lot of things that have happened to you, if you can take accountability for it, then you can move forward. If you don't, then you're saying that the world is in control of you rather than you being in control of your own world. And so I think that's extremely important for people to just take ownership of why they are where they are. It was it was my time, and it was my fault probably that I was one of the ones that got laid off from the University of Miami.
Mm-hmm.
Do I know what those reasons were? No, but I'm okay. I was one of the youngest professors there. So maybe I wasn't deserving to go on. Maybe I just didn't have the skills. I didn't bring enough to the table. I didn't bring enough grant money to the school. And so I take accountability for that. So I was dispensable. I didn't make myself indispensable. I'm okay with that. And I think that's the same for them.
It's like you went through the grieving process like quickly because you were more rational rather than emotional. And you were able to put that aside and say, okay, it happened. I accept it. What's next?
I think what you just said is so important for most people. Put your emotions on the outside and look at the logic of the situation at hand. Logically, what's happening? How do I move forward logically? Yes, I'm upset. I'm angry. I'm sad. My ego's hurt.
Mm-hmm.
But logically, what are the next steps? I need an actionable plan to get to where I want to go.
Yes.
The emotions are going to make that water very murky and are not going to allow me to move forward. But if I can logically come up with an action plan and a goal at the end, then all the steps that I take in between should be leading me to my goal. And if they're not, then they're just a distraction. So if you go through a breakup and your goal is to be in love again, but you're still hurt from this breakup, and so you start dating around con cualquier, you go to Bumble and you go to
Hinge, Tinder.
Hinge, yeah. So you're letting loose. You're having drinks.
You're carrying on that trauma.
Yeah, and there's no pursuit of actual love and a real relationship. Then you're just wasting your time, and you're never going to get to that end goal.
Yeah. In your practice at A&P Mental, what are the cases that you see the most with the other practitioners or yourself? Do the patients that come are aware? Do they have any insight of what's going on with them, or they're just going because it's the last resort for them?
It really varies from patient to patient. The reasons that people seek mental health help, for the most part, so the biggest diagnosis that we see is generalized anxiety disorder, just anxiety. People are just feeling on edge or have angst about, again, self-image, career, finances, and so many other issues. So I can't really, the ones that come with insight and self-awareness, they're the easiest people to help. Why? Because they're already aware of what issues they're experiencing.
I thought those will be the more difficult ones to treat because, yes, they know what's going on, but they still feel the same. They don't change.
No, because they're coming to you from a place of acceptance.
Okay.
From a place of, oh, I understand that something is happening to me. And they can describe it. And they can start to pinpoint and journal and say, oh, identify that my anxiety increases when this is happening in my life.
Okay.
This makes me anxious. This episode occurred and I'm feeling this way. So having that insight and self-awareness is something that really, really helps a patient.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
In terms of anxiety, what do you tell your patients? Coping mechanisms. How do you help them?
Again, it depends on the type of anxiety and what they're experiencing. For the most part, it's just CBT. They're going to have to go through cognitive behavioral therapy and try to understand, like, what are the thoughts that are leading to that angst. So it really, again, I'm sorry to use the same thing, but it really varies from patient to patient.
It really does.
In terms of the men that go to your practice, what do you see as the common denominator with most men? What are they presenting with?
The common denominator amongst most men is that they don't show up. Our practice is 75% female and 25% male.
Why?
That's a great
The
question.
stigma
So
could
let's
be?
talk about that.
Let's talk about that.
What do you guys think? Why wouldn't men seek mental health help?
To be perceived less manly.
To be perceived less manly? What else? Like
Culturally,
culturally,
It's-
boys don't cry,
boys don't
suck
cry.
it up, walk it off, be tough.
Yeah.
So these are all things that are even within the Hispanic culture, and
Mainly the Hispanic.
No, it actually permeates almost all cultures.
Yeah.
We have a big issue with substance abuse amongst first responders, and one of the main things that we hear is just why are they using substances?
To cope, that's their own coping mechanism.
It's a great drug. Alcohol is a great drug. It's definitely a remedy that works.
And against anxiety.
Yeah, but it has consequences as you continue to do it, right? There's mood swings, there's issues, there's addiction. So
Aggression that can come with it.
So these are all reasons why I try to vocalize to men, but it's almost hard when you're on Instagram or when you're using marketing to target the population. There's like the population that I want to reach because I know they really need help. But then it's like, or the population that you know is going to come and get services. And how do you, if you're from a business perspective, you just want to target the people who are going to come and seek your services.
The masses. Right. Want to target the masses.
But then from a community perspective, and you really being a caring clinician, you want to target the people that you know are in the highest need. And it's kind of strange because then you know that those marketing dollars aren't going to convert. So it's weird to wear this cap of businessman and then clinician at the same time because
it's conflicting.
It's very conflicting sometimes.
I think that's when we need to get the state and the laws and everybody involved so we can have the resources more available for the communities and we can target more that audience. But again, everybody, there's still that stigma around, and now there's a higher rise in mental health, but the resources are still not there.
And I think that, one of the biggest reasons for doing this podcast is breaking barriers, right? We want to break down those barriers, particularly for cultures and even men, that this is a topic that we don't typically talk about. It's really about education and getting and creating the awareness. And like I said before, it's creating a safe space for people who maybe are not feeling great right now, going through a hard time, and listening to our podcast and saying, oh, you know what? I love that Dr. Mesa just said that it's okay, going and getting help, or that only 25% of men are actually getting the help that they need. Yeah. So I'm glad that you just said that.
Tell us what's something that you do practice for yourself in your daily routine and your daily life that you can easily just go and tell our audience to do and
practical
apply in their
tips
life.
that they can apply.
I'm a huge believer in just self-care. In terms of,
but what does self-care mean for you?
Yeah, for sure. But I guess without self-care, I always just use the analogy: you can't fill anybody else's cup if you're on E. So it's extremely important for you to find something that's going to nourish you. What are the things that nourish me? Going to the gym or getting outside in the morning, or at any. I give myself 1 hour every day. Every day, I give myself 1 hour. And if there's anybody I want to say this to, is the moms out there for sure. I think moms are notorious for not seeking, not filling themselves first, so that they can really properly care for their families.
Yeah.
They're just so used to being givers and givers and givers that they put themselves last, and often that means that they get zero. So exercise is definitely one. Having a sense of community is another. Where do I find my sense of community, and where can people find a sense of community? I'm a huge believer in group fitness. So if you're the type of person who's not really motivated about working out, find a group fitness gym. Legendary Fitness is here in Doral in Miami. There's Orange Theories on every corner. And there's F45. There's a lot of different gyms that you can go to. But those gyms typically have the same groups of people that congregate day after day. And they're going there for personal development, for health. So you're going to find a lot of commonalities. And if not, there's church, there's book clubs, there's a lot of different ways that you can connect with other people. So
find your tribe.
Yeah, exactly. You have to find your tribe. We are a group living species. We do not survive on this individually on our own in silos. I think COVID exposed that a lot with the rise in mental health issues because people were finding that they were isolated, living on their own, stuck in their houses, and then just not knowing
exacerbated everything.
Yeah. And having no sense of social connection. That's difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. I have to talk to you about something.
Please.
So we have started this new segment on the show. It's actually, I'm going to ask you 4 questions.
Here we go.
It's
called the Flash 4. Are you ready?
I'm as ready
You
as
just
I'm going
have
to
to
be.
answer with the first things that comes to your mind.
I'm scared. Go.
Yeah. What is the best piece of advice you've ever gotten?
That's when your mind goes blank. The best piece of advice?
The best one that...
God, and you've shared so many good ones with us, by the way. Do you want me to remind you?
Sure, go for it. I had one that popped in my head, but go for it.
Don't make speed bumps into roadblocks.
Yeah, that's a huge one.
That was a really good one. I even wrote that one down.
Yeah, I would just say, do unto others as you'd have others do unto you. That's all.
Okay. The golden rule.
I think it's a universal principle. It's biblical.
A golden rule.
I really believe that that's the way you should live your life. And even when they take your hand, you still have the opportunity. Maybe it's not to that same person. You still have your other hand to extend to somebody else. Because a lot of people live with that emotional trauma of, oh no, I helped somebody and it didn't go my way. So.
Like going back to that acceptance, like, okay, this person may not be or acted the way I would for them, but that's okay. That doesn't mean anything. I'm a big girl.
You telling yourself right now?
Yeah. Next question.
Go for it.
What's the worst piece of advice you've ever gotten?
Can I give you an example? Or
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
yeah.
absolutely.
Every time I've tried to advance my career in one way or another, people would tell me it was a bad idea. I remember before I went to nursing school, my friend Seamus Strandell, wherever you are, Seamus, started talking to me about going to pilot school. And by the next week, I found myself at a private pilot's lesson, flying out of Opelika Airport in a little Cessna. And while I was up there saying, I have no interest in being a pilot, I love the medical field, and I realized that we landed fine. Every time I advanced, when I was leaving PICU to go to mental health, people were telling me, why would you want to work with those people?
Yeah.
When I wanted to advance my career again and become a psych nurse practitioner, one of my bosses told me, there's no good psych nurse practitioners out there. You have no reason to do that.
Then you'll be the first.
Mm-hmm. When I wanted to start my business, it'll never work. So I just feel like the discouragement that people give you when you're just trying to go to that next place, those are usually the worst pieces of advice that I've received.
That's good.
Haters.
I'm writing all this down. Next question. If you could see or meet with your past self, what would you say to him?
I'll beat his ass. No. I would just tell him to be more sure of himself, to be more confident. I would tell him to stop pursuing what the world wants you to pursue and instead go with what you really, really want to pursue, because that's going to allow you to find success, because success isn't necessarily monetary. Had I been a CRNA for the last, I don't know how many years, I probably would have made more money. For sure. I would have made more money.
But would you have been happy?
Yeah, I can't say I would have been, because when I shadowed somebody in the OR, I didn't find pleasure there. I didn't find enjoyment. I just didn't like the atmosphere. So I knew I didn't belong there. But had I forced myself to be there in pursuit of money, I probably would have been in a dark place, to be honest.
Last question.
Mm-hmm.
If you could have dinner with anyone, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Today, right now, I would say I would probably have lunch or dinner. Dinner sounds too romantic.
Okay.
I would have lunch with Gary Vaynerchuk.
Who is Gary Vaynerchuk?
Gary Vaynerchuk kind of lit a fire in me during COVID when I started my business to start producing content. Gary V, he has like probably, I don't even know, 12 million followers on Instagram. He's just a marketing genius and somebody who I feel like I owe a lot to him. All of my mentors up to this point have been podcasters. Andy Frisella, Alex Hormozy, Gary Vaynerchuk.
Andy Frisella, did you do the 75 hard?
No, I do everyday hard. No, but I just feel like these guys they keep it real. They're vulnerable. They're real entrepreneurs. They're dudes. They talk about emotions sometimes. They talk about not just about how they made it to the top, but all the difficulties that exist within that.
That brought them there.
Exactly. Because I think it's really easy for people to just tell you how awesome they are, but without telling you, hey, I ran into some issues today.
Yeah.
Hey, I did something really difficult. I had to lay somebody off. I had to change the operations within the practice, which is going to make me lose, I don't know how much money. I found out that last year in Google Ads, I lost $35,000 because of my own ignorance. So I think being real and vulnerable and having the volume of followers that they have, just it's huge. It's huge for me to have that knowledge in the palm of my hands for free. And so I'm extremely grateful for those people. They'll probably never hear this, but I know I owe people like that, and that's why I turn around and I want to do the same thing.
Paying it forward.
That's what brought you to do your own podcast. Tell us about that.
I started doing my own podcast because I just wanted to interview people, and I'm nosy. Part of me.
I think I am too, by the way.
Yeah, part of me just part of me wanted the opportunity to sit across from people and just have a genuine conversation, open, no aim, but get to know people. Part of it was because I stopped seeing patients about 2.5 years ago. And so as a result, I think I was lacking that connection like we're doing right now. I've never met you before in person. I've never met you. I've just seen clips on Instagram. And now here I am sitting here. And I found that the podcast was extremely powerful. How so? You can invite somebody who's a CEO of a company. If Chef Richard Ingram is Dwayne Wade's chef of over 25 years, had I called him and said, hey, chef, I know I watched you cook once. I took some photos of you, but do you want to go to Starbucks for like 2 hours and have a conversation about life? I'd probably be like,
Probably not.
That's weird.
Yeah. That's weird.
But hey, chef, would you mind coming to my office and jumping on the podcast and just talking about life? Yeah, I'd love to. That's an honor. And I don't know how many times that has happened where I just reached out to somebody. And as a result of the podcast, I don't have a huge volume of followers. But what I've gotten rewarded through that podcast is so cool.
Yeah.
From a business perspective, from just life advice, parenting advice, from other men, from women. And it's like being in a room doing a patient interview, but then being able to air it.
Yeah.
And I'm not approaching it from a clinician's perspective where I'm trying to treat and diagnose this person.
It's to understand.
It's a genuine conversation.
It's
human nature.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Life, because everybody goes through different things, and through the experiences they can have some knowledge. Like something that I found that it happened to me is that while I was studying therapies, existential therapy, the mindful, one of the interviewing. No, motivational interviewing. It's just all of it. The more that I will read, I'll be like, wait a second, I already do this every day in everyday conversation with my friends. So it's interesting that through life, even though that you don't study for it, that you're already applying certain things that are actually science-based. I don't know if I'm explaining myself.
You are.
Yeah.
But now that you say applying, it leads me to another question. If you can share practical tips that people can apply right now in their own lives, game changers for you. Tell us, what is part of your morning routine, something that you cannot go without? I want you to share it with our audience.
I mean, if you want to go extremely basic, protein intake.
Okay.
As crazy as that.
Protein.
Yeah. If you look at what we've been taught from a very young age, when I was little, a bowl of Cocoa Puffs or Honey Nut Cheerios was part of a balanced
Count
breakfast.
Chocula.
And you would sit there and
I used to
pour.
eat a cereal called
I have
Count
celiac
Chocula.
disease.
Yeah, of course. I've had Count Chocula. No, is that what?
I have celiac disease, like me and wheat. You
Oh.
know, we're not.
But so as a kid, we're fed all these very high sugary foods and told it's part of a complete breakfast. And now we're learning that, those were just marketing campaigns to sell this crap to us and created a diabetes epidemic. So I want to say that I think it's like 70% of Americans today are overweight. Most people are not physically active. So I want to start with food and nutrition and say that start having more protein throughout your day. If you start measuring how much protein you need to build muscle or to maintain muscle, it's probably, depending on your weight, it's I think it's 1 gram per kilogram of body weight or 1 gram per pound of body weight. I don't remember. I know I'm taking in at least 170 grams a day of protein. And that's probably the biggest hindrance to most people's diets is when they start looking at the amount of carbs to the protein, people are probably eating, they think having 1 steak and 2 eggs in the morning is enough. And that's probably 60 grams and they're short by like 100 grams a day. So that's just, I'm sorry to make it so basic and not mental health related.
No,
That's
That's
exactly that's a game changer for you. And it honestly got me thinking. I'm not eating enough protein, so there you go.
Yeah.
Think about
No,
it. So
I know.
today, real quick, let's do an exercise. What have you eaten today so far?
I've barely eaten today,
Yeah.
which is not a normal thing. I am
Well,
a
on a
foodie,
typical day,
and I can eat well. But like today, we've only had scrambled eggs.
Yeah.
So how many eggs did you have?
A typical day, I will have 2 eggs in the morning.
2
and
eggs. Okay.
a piece of toast.
So that's
Y aguacate, no
That's
puede faltar.
maybe
And the
12
avocado that I...
maybe 12 grams of protein you had in the morning.
I don't want to hear about me.
And you skip breakfast
I don't
altogether.
do breakfast.
So.
Then I eat like at 1:30, whatever protein they have, like chicken or meat, and then dinner, and that's it.
Another practical tip I could give you is to just embrace your failures. You know those things that you know those things that you hide that you don't want to tell anybody, that you want to
Beautifully flawed.
You want to keep skeletons in your closet. Those things own you. They own you. And it wasn't until I started realizing, like, actually, I think it was Gary Vee who was like, just if you can stand on the stage and use that now to have a story so that people understand where you're coming from and can relate to you, it changes the dynamic. And now it actually empowers you rather than it being this thing that's dragging, right? A boulder you're carrying around.
And also nobody can come and like point them out at you because you know them.
Yeah,
you know them. They're my buddies.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think those are things that people tend to compartmentalize and they hold on to them and they don't realize how much it's actually affecting them. It's like a poison that they're holding on to, and for no reason, because really they're not that big. They're not that scary. Other people can probably relate to that downfall in your life.
I have to say, like, I'm feeling so good about myself. Like you have this way of communicating the message. You're so wise and everything that you've been through life and what you're doing with AMP Mental and your podcast and as a professor, as a father, as everything. I think that it needs to be out there. So thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having joined us today.
And I'm sure that you hold your staff at the same high standards that you present. So
yeah, I shoot them with Nerf guns, but that's a different story.
So guys, we want to just come full circle right now. 2 practical tips that you can apply right now. I know I will, for sure. And totally one unrelated from the other, but I think they're both very good. Look at your protein intake. Maybe you're not eating enough protein. I know I'm not. That's actually, I know I'm not. So this is something I'm going to apply in my own life.
And the reason I brought it, muscle wasting is a huge problem that contributes to obesity as we get older as well. So you're going to be muscle wasting and then storing fat. So sorry.
No, that's very good information. And the other thing is owning your failures. Yeah. I love that you said that. Don't let these things continue to hinder you from making progress, from moving forward in your life. Own it. Yeah, you messed up. Maybe you're going through a divorce, or maybe you've been laid off, or maybe, this romantic relationship that you're currently in isn't going in the direction that you wanted to. Okay.
Everything takes you to where you're supposed to be. Yeah. So everything happens for a reason.
So own your failures. I love that you said that. And thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you guys. I appreciate it. Thank you for coming.
Where can they learn more about you?
So you can find me at Dr. Adrian Mesa on Instagram, also at the MPCEO. And also my practice is at AMP Mental Health. That's Alpha Mike Papa, AMP Mental Health, or ampmentalhealth.com. So we are a mental health practice focusing on therapy and psychiatry across the lifespan. We accept almost every major insurance, and we are telehealth and in-office based. You could find us you could call us at 305-204-9355.
Can you repeat that number one more time?
305-204-9355.
Very good.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for watching. We're going to leave all the information in the description box below, and make sure that you like, follow, and subscribe. And until next time,
bye.